the topic that we have decided for today was does like if we become serious about any activity, then does that activity still remain fun, or does it just become like a job, like any other regular job? And to join us today, we have our guest Akhil Asher. Akhil,
Hello.
Uh,
you're
so
still
yeah, so I am Akhil. I'm a senior undergraduate.
my
Just like
yeah,
kya? Hello.
yeah. We're not selling your SOP here, Akhil. This won't get you hired.
So what do you want me to say? Like I
Just hello.
like
So
Hello.
yeah, just hello.
hello. Okay. Cool.
So Akhil is our friend, and we thought that he's really interested in philosophy, and so we thought that he'll help us in this topic.
Flesh out this
Yes.
discussion. So actually, Rathi, I'm very interested to know why did this specific topic suddenly cross your mind?
Okay. So suddenly it's like so like I play Counter Strike, and recently the team that I follow, Astralis, has had a really big roster shift. So two of their players, Glaive and Zipnix, have recently announced Glaive has announced 3 months and Zipnix has announced indefinite break, stressing like citing burnout issues.
Oh,
And Astralis has been known to have a very well regimented schedule. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they'll have properly scheduled playtime sessions, properly scheduled gym, a good dietitian. They also have an onboard physiologist, psychologist to deal with mental stress and all that. So even if a team that's such well oiled and so regimented, players in this team are facing burnout, then so this is what struck this question in my mind. It's like if you get a job that you really love and you wanted for your lifetime, so does that job still remain like your dream job, or once you get into it you realize the ugly side and then it just becomes like a regular job?
Deep stuff. And just for people who are thinking he's talking about Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Yes, which I mentioned in the beginning, but that's fine.
Yeah. No, I think you missed out Global Offensive. But yeah, if people are follow the CSGO, but they should know about Astralis.
Yes.
So again, matlab, what I don't understand is why do you think about like why are you specifically differentiating between something which is a quote unquote dream job and something that is just a normal job?
So it's like a lot of people will have day jobs that they don't like or love.
Hmm.
They just log it to make ends meet.
Hmm.
And then there's this other set of people who have fortunately managed to find work that pays for their rent and all. And this is also work that they love. So, for example, a photographer, it's like someone who loves photography being a photographer
Hmm.
and actually
yeah.
being commercially successful at that. Or in the case of, so we have Kshitij here who's also low key successful in what he loves
Yeah.
at the moment, at least.
Yeah.
So, Kshitij, would you like to highlight on that?
Yes. So for me, the thing is like having a dream job is more like a sincere thing that like is accompanied with sincereness that I give to gaming, like game development, and not seriousness. So, like, if I'm being serious, that means like I'm ignoring everything else for that particular thing, and if I'm being sincere, then I'm giving that thing more weightage than others, but not entirely ignoring other things for the sake of that. So,
Right, but like at the moment,
yeah,
this is like game development is not your full-time job, right? So,
yeah,
like if you were to imagine yourself in some top-tier game development firm
hmm,
where your entire daily job would be to make games, so
yeah,
at that point, seriousness would not really be in your control, right? The way you defined it.
yes,
And so, okay, so I was just googling around, and then there's also this that uh, in the game development industry,
yeah,
it's actually pretty common to force people. to like just give up everything else and then make games.
Yeah, the crunch thing.
Yeah, so the environment is toxic, is what it is said
Yes.
apparently.
Yeah.
So this recently happened with Fortnite. The developer of Fortnite is like
Mhm.
when Fortnite became viral,
Yeah.
the developers had issues with actually coping up with the amount of work, while Epic Games was forcing them to work more. And
Mhm.
so, what would you say about that? It's like, would you be considering game development as a job, or is it just like a hobby?
I Yes, so I would still consider it as a job because like from the experience that I had during my internship, so like during my summer internship while I was working for UNESCO, like the office timing was from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Hmm.
And during like that time I was just solely focusing on making games and I did that thing for like around 2 months. So like if I only would have like working on the single game for 2 months, like and then I would have hated game development. So what I did to cope up with things was to participate in other activities like reading a book while on subway or something like that. So
Okay,
yes, so the thing is like if I have to focus entirely on game development, then no, like it would be bad.
right. So
So
that is
yeah,
that is the point here, right? I
yeah,
mean, and UNESCO is not for profit, right?
yeah. So that
So
was a benefit for me.
yeah, I mean, like if you were actually working in a business that was aiming to make money,
Yep.
probably they would expect more work.
Yeah.
And okay, so I also found this online was there is this former Yahoo CEO, Marissa Mayer,
Mhm.
and she was quoted that they were forced. So when she was at Google, she
Yeah.
was apparently being forced to work as much as 130 hours a week.
Oh,
So you guys have any thoughts on that?
So what I like understand from this, like what I have feelings in this topic is like anytime you want to make something that you loved into a proper profession, like the entire idea of going pro is that you want to gain money by doing something, right? You want to actually gain money.
mhm.
So
You want to
you
support
want to
yourself on
support
that.
yourself doing that thing. So being a professional, you have to have certain amounts of sincerity and seriousness and all that. And there definitely will be times when you will start like doubting, do you love this
Yeah.
anymore, and like is it still quote unquote fun? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
this is actually a very nice like thing example that comes out in one of my most favorite anime series, which is March Comes in Like a Lion, which you all should watch. So
Okay.
in season two, so like when he's trying to teach other people to play what he plays professionally, which is shogi, which is a sort of
Mhm.
Japanese chess. I think Go, right? Go is shogi only.
Mhm.
So in that, like he's trying to teach them what shogi is, like the different rules, and then he's explaining how the world of shogi and essentially almost any competitive quote unquote sport is like the stronger you get, the more bitter defeat starts to taste when you lose. And this thing essentially keeps amplifying the more and more better you get. And then the people who are listening to him, they get shocked and they ask him, like, do you still have fun playing shogi? And the reaction on that specific, like when they ask you, it is priceless. It's like what that like showed me is like after a point of time, these people who have picked up on their dream jobs, they sometimes start to forget. Like they picked it up because they had fun, or they picked it up because they were good at it.
Mhm.
They just get into the flow of things, and then you start treating it like any other quote unquote job, because that is what the job is, right?
Yep.
And so that's where I actually get to my like this, like why the distinction that people have between a dream job and a normal job really is a little misleading, is because after a point of time it is still going to be a job. and there will
Yeah.
be days when you don't want to do it, and it is up to
Yeah.
you to motivate yourself to do it. So whether you enjoy it or not, there will be days, right, that you're not
Yeah.
enjoying. And so the very fact that there are going to be days when you're not going to enjoy it, and but still will be forced to do whatever you're doing, and this is not just for games, right? Like there might be a person out there who enjoys making apps for a living, right? And that is a 9 to 5 job, and there might be a person who likes working in banking firms. So that might be his or her dream job, and not just in the money sense. Like it might be something that he's very interested to do. But the fact that there are going to be days when you are not going to enjoy something should not um, should not really stop you from considering that as a career profession. Like just because I am having fun now, but if I take it as a job, then I might not enjoy it. I don't know. So that somehow does not set like right. It does not fit right with me. Like does that make sense?
And the thing
Yeah.
is that like whenever we do a job, it's usually for something. We do a job to achieve a purpose, and we do a job for someone. So like even if you are the CEO of some company, then you're usually doing it like you have to please the investors, and you have to keep your shareholders like invested in your company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Huh.
So it's like you have to do things that you don't necessarily like. It's not that you'll always be doing things that you always like.
Mhm.
So at some point there will be some things that you don't like, but
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty much part of what we call a job.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this leads to an interesting point that I came across was like in today's world, freelancing and entrepreneurship is really gaining popularity,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And careers like YouTube are desirable careers on YouTube or something like that. So here there's like one more thing that I found might be related to more stress was that your work hours are not really set as such. So if you're working in a traditional industry somewhere, you'll most likely be working 9 to 5 and then you're done with it.
Yeah.
But when you're setting yourself up or working like being an entrepreneur or running your own business, you would likely be putting in a lot more hours.
Yep.
So would that also lead to like faster burnout, or is that a cause for people actually burning out? Like they just think that it is a sprint and then run as fast as they can, when
Yes.
in reality it's more like a marathon.
Yeah.
So
So
there's
like
there's no there's no diversification as such. So that's the problem with working from home as well. So if when we are working in a conventional traditional job, you always have some specific boundaries between your workplace and your personal life. But on the other
Hmm.
hand, there's no such thing when you're working from home or like making YouTube videos or freelancing or whatever. You
Okay,
are in the
so
same
I
place.
think like that point can be kind of, I think is less important because there's like if you look at top tier YouTubers, they'll most likely have their own studio where they create content which is
yeah.
different from their home, and
So actually, building
like they
building on
still
a
face
point,
burnout.
So
what I
as long as you're amateur, then like it doesn't that point isn't valid anymore. Like that may be true for some specific people who are like really on top of their profession, like in YouTube or whatever. But for most people, I guess it isn't. And even now, you see IT professionals working from home. They don't really have a particular place where they can actually. They don't have a home office or whatever. So
Yeah, like my point was not that. So my point is that even if you look at top tier YouTubers who have a dedicated studio, you'll also still find cases of burnout. It's like it's actually more prevalent in top tier YouTubers rather than like the ones who are not as accomplished.
So, like, first on your point of why freelancing and YouTube is gaining popularity, and I think like the main reason is you are the boss of yourself, right? So that
Yes,
concept
that's
has
always
gained a lot of popularity. Personally, I wouldn't be able to do that because going to a job, quote unquote job, would essentially they have a directed thing, they have a vision that they want to do, and you have to achieve this, right?
hmm.
So that is what a normal 9 to 5 job offers you. Is like you don't really have to.
A relative point.
Huh.
Yes, you have
You
little
have
things to
different
worry.
stresses. I'll agree on that front, but this is not a stress that you must like as much as these people who are generating their own content have to go through. So
Yeah.
and going on to the question of burnouts, like burnouts happen in every place, right? It's not just people who are freelancing who are burning out, right? Even the people who are doing 9 to 5 jobs are burning out.
Yeah.
So
there is an interesting statistic there. So I was looking on the internet and they have, so this is a survey. I'm not saying that this is 100% true, but they mentioned burnouts based on
okay,
industry. And guess what industry is at the bottom?
finance.
Nope.
IT.
Nope. It's like hardcore manufacturing.
Coal mining.
Oh.
Yeah, that is at the bottom where you're actually physically exerted. So, I mean, like burnouts are prevalent in all industries, but I think it's more so in these new industries.
So burnout,
Which like also brings me to my next point. But yeah, finish.
so like what I was actually alluding to is like burnouts mostly come up from places where there is a lot of mental involvement, where you have to be doing things constantly, thinking about many things constantly. So this what I hypothesize would be happening is that in a place where you are driving your own business or you're driving your own creations and things like that, where you have to be constantly on the top of your game at all times, just to capture a lot of things. So in those cases you will be facing a lot of more mental pressure, and what I feel that burnout is essentially a mental thing, right? It's like it stems from that. So a place where you have to be constantly making decisions would have more chances of getting burnouts. So even in the 9 to 5 jobs, so people who are relatively on the lower path or lower of the hierarchy would not have to make would not face as much mental pressure as somebody who is on the top, right? Because that person on the top will have a lot of things that he's going through and a lot of decisions. Creators, all these freelancers, they are essentially their own like bosses, right?
They have to take care of it.
So in a way, if you look at it, so like if you're comparing the mental pressures that YouTubers and these people face, and when you try to compare it to a 9 to 5 job, just comparing to somebody who is on the quote unquote lower rungs might not be a good comparison. You should be looking at those in the top echelons, and then that comes to it, right? So the number of people at the top echelons are very less. So I think an interesting study would be is like in this hierarchy, what is the percentage of burnouts that people see? So that could be an interesting follow-up to this study. But yeah.
And another thing that leads to burnout of like more burnout of freelancers is like when you're starting up, you don't have content or reviews to like get credit like validated. So the initial is like people focus more on building their portfolio. So like when you have a typical person who is working from 9 to 5, you have freelancers who are working from like 9 to 9 in order to just make more money, because then you start thinking in hours in terms of money. Like, okay, if I just put in one extra, I would get like around 400 rupees. So by that mentality, you just start cutting out your free time, and that leads to an earlier burnout.
Yeah, and so like this starting off,
like for me, like the idea of starting off doing something on your own is very scary just because of this. Like,
and yet you started a podcast.
We are not monetizing this anytime soon, right?
Yeah,
sure, but still. So that is so that brings me to our next point, is that regulation in these industries, it might also be a factor. So if you take into account YouTube, so you are pretty much at the mercy of the algorithm.
Yeah.
Whereas in like a traditional industry, there's a lot more regulation and normalization of things.
Yeah.
So you have trade unions, you have workers unions and all that. So would that also, I mean, it's like you might be a YouTube superstar today and then tomorrow your videos might stop just showing up to people.
Yeah.
So is that also another cause?
So what's your point again? Is it something like because you are a YouTube because you're a YouTuber, you have this kind of pressure that you have to always work hard. Is this something like that? Or
Yeah. So you have to constantly work hard, and then there's no guarantee as such. It's like you might have 1 million subscribers today, but then just because of some change in the algorithm, you might stop seeing videos, and then like your YouTube career might as well be over there.
Yeah,
So just like in a night.
yeah, and there's another thing like the bar for YouTube or other activities which are like online. They have a platform set
Mm-hmm.
with respect to like all over the like international bar. Like you are competing with
Yeah.
all other like people from different countries who are like who are as talented as you. And when you have a 9 to 5 job, it's typically more targeted to that particular area. So like if a 9 to 5 job, like let's say you are in Bangalore, so then mostly you'll be competing on with the people around Bangalore or in India. You won't be competing around those who are in US. But in YouTube or in freelancing, you'll be competing around with everyone.
No, but building on what
Yeah,
Rathi said, right, about the entire thing that you are at the mercy of the policy in the
yeah,
place that you are.
no,
So, like, yeah, I completely agree on that front. It's like a lot of these YouTuber videos where they talk about YouTube, right? So so the
Mm-hmm.
main thing that you get is that they are scared of what is going to happen. Is like some company from around the world suddenly come and claim monetization on half their videos, and it's like
how?
the YouTubers are scared a lot of the time.
So yeah,
And
like you're also seeing the shift to Patreon and
yes,
all
and the
that.
shift to Patreon that is happening nowadays. So it's like, yeah. And then that is a very interesting point that you brought up. It's like there is no unions in for YouTubers as such, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
like, oh shit. It's a very interesting point that you brought up. It's like another video that I was actually watching. So I don't remember where, but what they were talking about, like if you since you're specifically talking about YouTube, right? So the moment your
Mm-hmm.
job gets is essentially associated with the companies, normally nowadays you have podcasters, right? So they have different podcasts on different platforms, but a podcast is a open source thing, right? It's a media. It is not something that is tied to a specific company. But the moment you start talking about YouTuber, a YouTuber is essentially a person whose job is built on YouTube. So the
Yes.
pressure that those people face just because one company controls their entire livelihood must be insane.
Exactly. I mean, like recently we've also seen all the all caps YouTube titles just to make your video
Mm-hmm.
stand out,
Yeah,
and all those tactics. I mean, so there's also this point that I found was that YouTube is still a relatively new media compared to traditional TV and radio.
yeah,
And so there's no class for how to deal with negative comments, trolls, maintaining subscriber counts,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. So like as you said, that it's all on the creators. They need to figure everything out for themselves.
yeah,
And so this also brings me to one more point, is that today's like world is drenched in data, right?
yeah.
So is that another cause for stress? Is like you constantly monitoring your, like I'm taking YouTube again, but you constantly monitoring your subscriber counts, your how much engagement your videos got, how many comments you had. And so this would also translate to all other, like all these jobs. So even if you're like a professional CS:GO player, they still look at your stats. If you don't get the kills, your how much your kill to death ratio is, how effective you were, all that. They have stats for all that. And in sports, if you're not performing, you'll easily be replaced.
Hmm.
A little segue into a little lighter side. Akhil, please, do you have any nihilistic opinions on this?
not really. Like, what sort of nihilistic opinions like come across your mind? Considering you brought this up,
Is data is
no,
data
no,
the
no.
thing?
It's like
is the
Disable data. I mean, should we not gather so much
uh,
data about this, about our votes?
Yeah,
well, I guess at some point you have to stop. There's a threshold that there's a threshold that all of us have, and if you start overdoing something, then like it is obviously going to affect you in a negative way.
very
Mhm.
nice thought by
And,
Akhil.
and similarly,
Yeah.
like so there's also the thing of redundancy. Like it can affect you in both ways. So for example, like when I start binge watching a series, let's say, or any YouTube thing, it's like I don't really get addicted to it. I don't like have to do it again and again. At some point when I start overdoing it, it just like stops interesting me. So it can go either ways. It's not so I am sure there are plenty of YouTubers who are like bored of their job and they've left it. So there was PewDiePie in a year back or something. He he
Hmm.
he he took a break just because he wasn't he wasn't just interested in it anymore. So it can
Yeah,
go either ways.
exactly.
You can either get really bored of it or it can affect your mental health in some way.
So, I mean, I think YouTube is also taking a look at. So, recently they came up with this that they're going to abbreviate subscriber count so that you can't really follow exactly how many subscribers you have.
Oh,
Like again, building
They
on.
already did this with the like button. Like,
Is that so? Are they randomizing those numbers?
they're
Like,
not randomizing those numbers, but they have an option where you can actually disable your likes and
you can
dislikes.
But
yes,
again, like building on what
but
Akhil said, right? It's like everybody has different thresholds, and trying to identify those thresholds that you have, I think, is one of the most effective ways. Not another is one of those ways where you can avoid going through a burnout, right? In almost anything. It's like if you don't have these kind of feedback mechanisms, you might not be pushed to do better, right? A
yeah.
lot of people, like, if they don't have
okay.
this thing, so like a lot of habit trackers nowadays, right, they all they are going with the entire concept of what a streak is, right? So the day you do a habit, you press okay, and then the more and more you keep doing a habit, so you can see that over a period of time you have this one big red line showing that you have been doing this habit consistently. So it's like a lot of people
Yes.
might actually be dependent on those statistics in a non-negative way to help motivate them go forward. But then again, depending on what Akhil
So,
said,
like,
is like
friendly
everybody
competition.
has a threshold, and identifying those thresholds, ki when should you stop, is very important.
Hmm. And
This is nothing to do with the
yeah,
abbreviation or
so
subscriber thing. The most I could say is like, okay, by default abbreviate it, but at least give those people who want it like the option to see the actual things. I don't know.
but then so then that becomes the question of who is the better judge
Exactly.
for you? Like, should you be the judge for yourself?
See, my argument, which I have not prepared in any way, would or try to become YouTubers because they like the entire thing that they have control over what they're doing, right? So the moment the company starts taking such control away from them, how is that going to affect their
Okay.
mentality of like, this is what I am doing, this is what I am driving, right?
Yes, but then also it is the question of what kind of control the company is taking away. So if like YouTube brings out a policy that you can only make so and so type of videos, that would probably
The end of
be
it.
the
Mhm.
final nail in the coffin. Like, yeah, no, I don't want to publish on YouTube anymore. But if they're saying is that no, we're not going to show you your full and final 6-digit subscriber count. It'll just be 1 million, 1.01 million, and nothing beyond. Maybe it's not that big of a deal to people.
But it's going to be a big deal of people. It's a very small thing. But what I'm saying is that things like this reflect, right, what companies' policies are. Like if they think that something is wrong, or if they think that something is doing some way is better, and they go ahead to do that, this might reflect bad on them for a certain set of people who might be considering to make YouTube the platform that they make videos on.
But then that assumes that you have sufficient
As in,
competition. You need to have a suitable
exactly. So that's a
alternative for
different
YouTube.
ballgame altogether. It's like you can't do shit until something else comes out.
Exactly. And okay, so I think I have one more point, and that was like I found an HBR study So that talking about burnout and how like passion is related to you burning out or not burning out. And what they found was that if you're actually you love what you do and you feel passionately about it, you are, according to their study, at an increased risk of burnout.
Oh,
So it's like according to Mayo Clinic, like two of the so they listed down six possible risks that might lead to burnout, and two of them are you identify so strongly with work that you lack balance between your work life and personal life, and or you work in a helping profession.
yeah.
Okay, like
So yeah, in the end, it's all about diversification. Like you have to keep on doing different things.
Hmm.
You can't just be doing one thing again and again, even if it's something that you like really like. You have to diversify your portfolio in some way.
Yeah.
Says the guy who's opting for a
see,
PhD.
even if
It's
it's a PhD,
so
right?
a PhD research doesn't really mean that you'll be doing the same thing. Like PhD in the end will just be a
Oh,
job. Will just be like a
okay.
job.
So
Okay.
no,
Anybody
no, no,
want to
not disagreeing.
disagree?
See, a PhD, what I think he might try to say is that a PhD, even if we are doing a PhD, it's not like we are going to be researching 24/7. We'll try to cultivate other hobbies, right?
You have to like
You have
you
to.
Okay,
don't
so
really have a choice there.
heard from grad students that peer pressure is super high, and then that is what leads to people working more and
Exactly.
more
So
hours in the lab.
it is not hidden that a PhD life is very stressful, right? And most of the professors that I have talked to allude to the fact that PhD students think that they have to work 24/7. So this is not a hidden fact. It's like
Yes.
something we know, but still, I think what Akhil and I
And coming to PhD, like it's for me, it's one of the most diverse jobs that you can have. So compared to a conventional like desk job, it's a PhD or say research in general is about a lot of things. It's not just about sitting in a place and like doing working on Excel sheets or codes all the time. It's about many things. It's about documenting your things in some way. It's about like researching. It's about thinking. It's about teaching
So
also to an extent. So I don't think you should really bring up
so
PhD
conveying
in this context. Like
Arey, nahi. So I agree why the PhD point came up, but what I'd like to like essentially build on what Akhil said before is like you have to have passion, right? To enjoy what you're
yeah.
doing, you have to have passion. But at the same time, I guess the way to go is passion in moderation.
Yeah.
So it's like
Isn't that true
everything,
for all
almost everything.
things?
So until you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to enjoy what you're doing. It's a sad fact. And like the same reason why I am going for a PhD is because the idea of a 9 to 5 desk job bores me, right? So it's like I cannot imagine myself sitting 9 to 5 at a desk and just working out on something repetitive. Like that's why research seems a little bit more appealing. But let's see what happens in 4 years. Um, and that's exactly right. But then the idea is that you should not get so invested in your work that you pass that threshold that you have, right? So that's what the way to go is passion and moderation. Yes,
Passion in
I
moderation.
just came up with that.
Sure. Isn't there like
Exactly.
contradiction in itself?
That is the sad fact, right? You have to deal. So it's like a spectrum, right? You're not interested and you're utterly passionate.
Are
What?
these the two things? Are those the only two
No,
things
but
that are on the
our
spectrum?
spectrum is in between two ends. Like there is a lot of things in the middle, and you have to try to achieve a
I see.
balance.
Okay. Anybody would like to add anything?
Wait, I think we deviated significantly from the original title. Not significantly, but yeah. Yeah.
Not really, but like I
Yeah,
think we're
I think
still
like
on
being
track.
final year students, we are thinking a little too much about life. But Actually, what I want to talk about, like even in normal things, right? Like say video games that you're playing, there is a level of seriousness that you can get. So actually, I'll
Yeah.
just talk about what I was thinking of. So these Rathi people, they play a lot of CS:GO, and I used to play CS before, and then I had a sort of a break for 2 years, after which I started playing. And when I started playing again, I was pathetic, at least compared to them. They still are still in silver, so can't say anything. Wait, Rathi went gold, right? Yeah, okay. So still.
Yep.
So when I initially started playing, and I was pathetic and I did not enjoy playing at all. So I still liked the idea of playing with friends. So what I started doing is like going on all these training maps, right, and trying to train my aim. Because for CS:GO, there are two important things. Like one is like you have the proper aiming skills, and the other is game sense. Now, game sense might come only after you have put in the hours, right, playing actual competitive CS. But I thought maybe I could improve my aim a little bit. And then I very distinctly remember Rathi coming up to me and saying, like, bro, what are you doing? If you start doing things like this, it's not no longer going to be fun. And so,
Exactly.
So
so no, no, no. So what I like want to bring out, right, is like there is a lot of times where to make something fun, you have to put in the reps in, right? So now I'm significantly better than I was then, right? And that is only due to the fact that I put in those reps of shooting people's heads who are not moving. And that has significantly improved my enjoyment that I have in this game as a whole. And so that's the entire idea, right? To make something fun would require would require you to put in the effort to actually make that game fun a lot of times.
precisely, and so just like there's an upper threshold for doing things, like for not doing things, let's say, there's also a lower threshold for like making things fun. So why do we like start to like things? It's because we are good at it. So when someone says that they like a particular subject, it's just the one of the probable reasons could be that they've performed well in that subject. So
This threshold thing is very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It's like you also it also adds to the surroundings, right? I mean, if you're somewhat decent at your stuff, you'll get
Exactly.
and you'll
encouragements
get
to
sense of
improve.
achievements.
But if you're like pathetic, like I'm not so sense of achievement is internal, right? I'm just talking about external conditions here. So it's like if you're moderately good or somewhat good, you'll probably get encouragements to get better. But if you're like pathetic at it, everyone would be like, yeah, just quit this, leave us alone, you're troubling us.
And actually, building out that idea of sense of achievement. So, like, there's another game, right, called which I'm playing, Hollow Knight. Again, plug, one of the best games that I've played. Two best in this episode. Nice. So what Hollow Knight really nicely does is that it ties in that sense of achievement to its core gameplay. So while people outside may say that the gameplay that Hollow Knight has is just 10 hours, I have put in 70 hours or 60 hours into the game and plan to put in more just to get that 112% completion that's there. So I'm currently on 110. So what I used to think, right, like all these Hollow Knight videos that I used to watch before I had become any good at the game, I used to feel like, why do people put in so much effort in this game? And there is a lot of times that when we see somebody from the outside, right, we see them putting in insane amount of efforts into something that we feel is like trivial. Like, not trivial, but it's like not that important. It's like, and you start to think like, why are these people so obsessed about this? And like, again, so the entire idea comes is like, until and unless you yourself have experienced what the other person is doing, at least to some extent, it's very hard to like notice
Appreciate.
and understand what's going through their heads, right?
Yes, it looks very easy
And
on
this
screen.
actually flows into my point of the entire controversy that esports has brought amongst the, I think the correct term is the boomer generation, right? Okay, let's not go into that. So like all these old people who have not grown up playing games. They think like you are getting paid this much money for just playing this game, and they laugh at it. It's like, and they completely ignore the fact, the amount of time that that person has put in, dedicated to making, getting better at that game, right? And that is something that is going to be very difficult, not just for games, right, but esports currently are in the spotlight for all of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like people, there are a lot of people who just say sports are always greater than esports.
So I think my main point was like done.
Mhm. But then that is also kind of creating a somewhat negative environment. So it's like in esports, so I know about CS. So you'll have at least 4 or 5 the major tournaments in a year generally. Whereas in like traditional sports, like the Olympics takes place once every 4 years.
Okay, so like, what is the point?
The redundancy is more. Is that what you're saying?
It's like it's putting more pressure on the people who are in the industry, like the
In
players.
traditional sport also you have like national tournaments and as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's say for
You have to
cricket,
stay
yeah,
fit.
I mean, yes, but then Olympic athlete, but your main goal would be to win a gold at the
no, so,
Olympics, right?
uh,
Like tournaments are
yeah, but
still less
like
pressure.
for India, let's say take the example of cricket. So like you have IPL every year, then
Mm-hmm.
you have Champions League, then you have like the World Cup, and then
World
T20
Cup
World
is
Cup.
once in 4 years, right?
Yeah, so
Me,
normal
Same for
ODI World
T20.
Cup is 4 years, then we have T20 World Cup, which is after 4 years, but they are gonna be like in the consecutive or like with a year between them. Then other tournaments like the tri series and all the things which keep happening between different like countries. So you have matches going on.
Like I'm not saying that they don't play at all in between Olympics or like that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that like you don't have the same pressure as you probably would have in World Cup or in Olympics in a smaller tour.
me see, Rathi,
So it's
what I
fine.
think you have to understand is that currently the esports scene is, so and but they still, the players still have to be playing regularly to get money, right? And trying to and there, like, to be fair, there aren't really that many options for them to do other than go into all of these majors at this point of time. Maybe if somewhere down the line the number of people playing CS:GO becomes very big, then I think the number of majors might go down, or maybe they might put something on top of the majors that happen only once every 4.
Yeah, and then like you pointed out about other things, right? So yes, that is also a possible thing. Like if you're a cricket player, you can probably get advertisement jobs or like that. You'll be a mascot for people.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're an esports star, you probably won't even be recognized. Except maybe in Brazil. In Brazil, I've seen ads of people from Counter
Hey, so
Strike.
people from Counter Strike, like, you get ads on at least all this gaming mice and all that. So that
Yeah.
the entire scene is slowly changing, right? So people are understanding what esports is, and they are slowly changing.
So we hope.
So we hope. And similarly, we hope that YouTubers get a little leeway from the company.
Yeah.
It's so important. Like there's so much great content.
Yeah. No standoffs this episode, I think.
Right? Yeah, we've all agreed. Passion and moderation. That is the motto. Akhil, would you like to add anything?
Nope, that's it. Pretty much it.
All right. So we conclude on passion and moderation.
Yeah.
Nice.